So I just said, I'm not, so I cut my hair short, got it back to its normal color, and I wanted a bruiser bob. But then later on, as I progressed and got in and out of wrestling, because I wasn't, when the red light came on that camera, I froze up. I could feel pieces of my teeth floating in my mouth. I was so nervous.
Really?
Shirts that I wore that were dark dye would come right off on my body. I was so hypertense.
Wow.
And so I quit the business and worked for my dad for a while in the roofing business. Went home one day, it was raining, and I turned on the TV, and there was a movie called D.I., Jack Webb, black and white. He portrayed this horrible drill instructor, never said a foul word, because it was that time of that era, and I said, that's the character I've never seen in wrestling, a drill instructor, Sergeant Slaughter. So I gave it to Vern Gagne, and he loved it, sent me to Kansas City, and God bless Harley Race fell in love with Sergeant Slaughter and took me in the ring and just taught me everything that I needed to know and relaxed me, and I never
That's awesome.
looked back. Never looked back. Yeah.
You would, oh, I'm sorry, I was one.
That was his follow-up now.
Yeah. Do you play a lot of tennis? I know
No.
you were all. Where the hell did the tennis racket come
Well,
from?
luckily, the name came from my uncle's name was James, and my middle name, which some people know and some people don't, was actually my dad's best friend. So my parents fixed me up with the name. That was good. But the whole reason why that I used my real name, well, apart because a lot of people, back then did, as long as the promoter wanted to, was because they already knew me here in this territory from doing the magazines and programs, taking pictures, and being, for years and years since I was a kid. And so it was obviously, now we will find out, according to Jerry Jarrett, and he was right, we will find out that you are a clueless, rich putz whose mother has given you millions of dollars to enter wrestling because you've done this as a hobby all this time. And it worked because I had actually started doing the photography and the ring announcing and everything when I wasn't old enough to drive, so my mom would take me to the matches. And so, okay, and then boom, and he said, we're going to give you Gary Hart's old Playboy gimmick, but you've really got a mother, okay. But I didn't have I wasn't carrying anything except a lot of, self-doubt at the time. But then when we went to Louisiana for Watts, that's when, the guys started telling me, oh, geez, those fans are going to kill you. Because the Tennessee fans, every once in a while somebody would get out of line, but they were, around about the late 70s, people stopped hitting the ring on a regular basis against the heels around here. Because it used to happen everywhere.
I didn't know that.
But no, it really did. I mean, it's still in Louisville when I was a photographer. You would see the cops who were still wearing the riot helmets till like 79 or so at the matches. They'd be grabbing one and throwing them out of the ring because they'd be in there on Jimmy Hart or Lawler or whoever.
Wow.
But they'd calm down in the early 80s a little bit, and plus I was an underneath guy, so I didn't have that much heat anyway. Still took a few shots at Jimmy. One time I'll tell you, but anyway. Point is, the racket, get to it. So they said the Louisiana fans are going to kill you. They got the Cajuns in Louisiana, they got the Cowboys in Texas and Oklahoma, they got the Rednecks in Mississippi. You're going to die. They're going to cut you, they're going to stab you, you're going to be buried in a ditch somewhere.
Oh my God.
And when I got down there and did the first couple of TV tapings, I saw, son of a bitch, they were right. These people were going to kill me. So, the managers had used umbrellas and canes and, briefcases and different things. I'm trying to think, because I didn't want to do somebody else's thing, right? That was the classic Tennessee manager. Give him a cane, right? Went to see one of those teen movies, and it was hot in the early 80s. And the rich kid in the piece spends his whole time, goes around in the whole, I don't even know what this movie was. Somebody could probably look it up, and then you'd care.
I think I know the movie you're talking about.
He carried a badminton racket around the whole time, and I saw that when we'd gone to watch this TV for the second time, and we were fixing the following week to go move down and start. And I knew once I got to the house shows, I was going to need something. Tennis racket. And it's got I got some reach on them. I can load it. That's where the loaded tennis racket came in. Because with the first 3 shows we were in Houston, we started a riot of some kind. I had pepper spray at one point, but I lost that in a scuffle when people tackled us.
Oh my God.
Baton Rouge was really bad. Tulsa was so bad. The Little Rock police guys, actually, one of them gave me, when they changed their bulletproof vests out, one of them gave me his bulletproof vest. He said, it won't stop an ice pick. And he said, but they can't, they wouldn't be able to cut you, and you know, it's whatever range it'll stop it by. I'm like, oh, thanks, I'm glad I know this now. But no, they were bad. They believed. Watts did a great job in his territory. It was the most violent territory probably in the continental United States at that time, I would think. And in the Northeast, there was like a Boston would be real bad, and in Puerto Rico, you know. But anyway, so I ended up, the reason I loaded the tennis racket for years with a horseshoe. The horseshoe was thrown at me, a legitimate horseshoe, from the bleachers in Tulsa at the fairgrounds.
Wow.
And I saw it coming. And I ducked it, and it landed there, and I said, that's a lucky horseshoe. I'm lucky it didn't kill me.
Yeah.
So I still got it in my suit bag that I carry with me everywhere. But
Nice.
I would put that in and duct tape it, and all of a sudden you could take a tennis racket, look like a tennis racket, bam, you could bend a stop sign in half.
Yeah.
So if we were going to use it to finish, I wouldn't load it. Most of the time. Sometimes my self-preservation came first,
I understand.
and if we were in Tulsa, there was a horseshoe in that tennis racket because we had a ride in Tulsa 6 shows in a row.
Oh my God.
They actually kicked the Tulsa City Police Force out of because there was internal affairs investigation of the fans that were pummeled by the nightsticks, but the cops that were trying to keep them from killing me because I was bleeding. And so then they kicked the police force, city police out, and got the sheriff's department, and they sent all the old sheriffs, right? We're back at the fairgrounds. We're not even the downtown assembly center. They send the old sheriffs out the night that we're wrestling Watts and Junkyard Dog in the last stampede.
Oh, yeah.
Nikolai Volkov goes out the match before with Crusher Darso, who later became Crusher Khrushchev, in his corner against Terry Taylor.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, here come 2 cops dragging a cop. His knees are like this. A fan went on the way to the ring. They were already this mad. Went to hit Nikolai Volkov with a metal folding chair and missed and horse-collared the sheriff and knocked him out.
Oh my God.
So then they're carrying that guy out feet first. And then we were ringside. I said, by God, if we won this match, it would need a helicopter to get us out of here alive. You know. So anyway, the point of where I was going with that was I usually didn't load it. If we were going to use it, I didn't. But if we were in a bad place, I did. But one night, we're in Tulsa. It is loaded. And Dennis Condrey loses track of himself. And they draw the referees, give me the racket. So I toss it. I think he's going to give him Ricky Morton, obviously.
Yeah.
He's going to give him a poke in the stomach.
Right.
He drew back as Ricky's on his hands and knees. And because you hit the marks, so you hit the marks with the edge of it, right?
Right.
Because that's what does the damage.
Right.
Flat was like a chop. It would sound great, but it would sting, but it wouldn't. But he hit him flat on the back in full swing with that horseshoe in the racket. And Ricky went, oh my God, and looked up at him like, do I owe you trans? And Dennis, he was so jacked up he didn't realize the extra weight, right? I just, you know, so it led sometimes to unforeseen moments.
The thing you could do is, if you lined up past, present, living, and deceased villains, without a doubt, 99% of them were wrestling fans. Before they became wrestlers, because you had to be.
Really?
In order to do the things that he just told me. things that I did.
Wow.
Hey, Bobby Heenan tells this story. Actually, we're going to get you, and we're almost going to get kicked out here. And also, I got a pee-pee, but I got to tell the Bobby Heenan story because Bobby's first night, you may have heard this, Bobby, love him, and he was the all-time greatest manager, bar none. But he started, like we all did, by hanging around the matches in Indianapolis, because that was his hometown. And he would do odd jobs, he'd do ring crew and whatever for Dick the Bruiser and all the, you know, just to be around. And finally, they told him, they said, come to the wrestling office, right? We want to talk to you on Monday or whatever. Okay, so Monday he shows up at the office. There's some fans, actually in those days, fans would hang around the wrestling office, and one of them asked for his autograph. He said, I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. Yes. And his name is Bobby Heenan because he was named after Bobby Davis, the great manager of the 50s, because that's who they had in mind when they thought his real name is Raymond. But because Bobby Davis would be the gentleman, Bobby Davis would be the manager they would think of. they named him Bobby. Your name is Bobby Heenan. Okay, and you're going to Louisville, you're going to manage the Assassins. His first night managing, 1964, say whatever it was in Louisville, which was a shit town at the time. The Bruiser would run, but they didn't have TV, managing 2 off-brand masked assassins against whoever the baby faces were. And he goes out, and he's dressed in a kind of a suit at the time, and he's just bleached his hair, and he doesn't really know what he's doing, and they have him draw the referee during a spot. The people are screaming, and there's people swinging, throwing stuff at him. And, oh, this is great. And then finally he's involved in the finish some kind of way where some fan tries to tackle him off the apron of the ring, and the cops are dragging him away. And then he goes in the back, and Johnny Valentine is on the card. And an old-time wrestler named Wee Willie Davis was like 6'9", 350 pounds, was in the sheriff's department there locally in Louisville.
Oh.
And somehow they got in a beef and started getting in a fight. And Wee Willie Davis has a nightstick, and Valentine's going in his bag for a gun. And when they hit each other, they said it sounded like slapping wet fish together. And there's this brawl, and they're breaking these people up. And then he goes out the back, and he gets in the car, and people are throwing things in his car, and he's riding with the Assassins. He gets on the bridge to cross the Ohio River to go back up to Indianapolis, and there's a wreck on the bridge. The police are there. He said there's a car on fire, and the sirens. And then suddenly he says, of course, now Bobby can tell a good story, but suddenly he says, I look out the side window, and here comes a man running on fire. And they drive back to Indianapolis, and he goes to the office the next day to pick up his check. And they paid him $20. And he said, when can I do this again? That's what you had to do.
Hell yeah.
I understand. One more. I'll moderate for you. Wait a minute, 1.5 more. Because you.
All right.
Quickly.
Your Ring of Honor stint.
Yes.
Just in general, there's a lot of conjecture about it. Like, mostly, I'm reading online, mostly negative. That's not my opinion. But what's your overall?
Oh Jesus! You should have asked this 45 minutes ago.
I know. I was like,
well, no. Basically, no. I love those guys. I think that athletic wrestling, treated seriously, has every chance of being a success, especially if it's a little bit better funded than it currently is. I will just make that one offhand comment that it increases everybody's workload. But I came to an epiphany, which is a sudden dramatic realization of facts, when I was at the Eaton Park in Belle Vernon, Pennsylvania at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, November 4th, eating my first meal in 20 hours after having spent 14 hours being the executive producer of 5 hours of weekly TV seen on 50 broadcast stations around the country, being shot in an unheated ice rink 5 miles off the Pennsylvania Turnpike in the middle of a field. It was midnight, the show had just ended, and I have a wrestler down, possibly paralyzed, but at least unable to breathe. We're not sure exactly, because the ambulance is pulling up to the back door, and I send people up to the people in the office to tell them, hey, we got a guy maybe paralyzed, and I need a couple $100 in cash to give to the local guy to follow the ambulance so they can bring the body back. And they were all gone because they were tired.
Oh my God.
That was Steve Carino.
Yes, and I said to myself, Jerry Lawler, the most stress-free man in the history of the wrestling business, has just had a heart attack and died on live national television, but being as it was Monday night and he is the king, he made a comeback and beat death.
That's right.
And that week, Brad Armstrong had just died, younger than me and in much better physical condition. And meanwhile, I was going through this shit. I said, I'm going to have a stroke. And so I went home and went on a diet. And I have not made a wrestling appearance since. And I feel so much more relaxed.
Yeah.
I want those guys to succeed, but it was becoming a rib, as they say, on me.
Well, you were talking about earlier, like how currently the WWE just can't seem to get good personalities, which is true. But you look at most indie wrestlers. No offense to them, but they just have no personality to begin with.
I've noticed that people don't have a lot of fucking personality anymore. Mm-hmm. No, seriously. You used to be able to find a character, as they used to say, but back when guys didn't have characters, they were characters. Like my mom would say, he's a real character. Yeah. She didn't say he had a character that he's devised for himself. He's a real character. Guys used to come in the locker room, you didn't know what the hell was going to go on. They'd come, Kerry Von Erich would bust in the locker room. Anybody seen my dog? No, Kerry. And he'd go off that way, and then somebody'd say he didn't bring his dog with him. You didn't know what was going on. Now guys they sit there and they text on their phone.
Yeah.
We had to entertain ourselves in Nashville, here in this town, and we're going to come to you, and I'm going to piss myself, so we're going to close this thing up. Let Sarge have it. But in this building here in Nashville, the sports arena at the fairgrounds, the locker room consisted of a cinder block room with a one toilet stall, the stall, and a shower, and a sink on the wall, and there was no mirror.
No mirror.
And this room is about 14 feet square, would you say?
Yep.
And also contains a water heater. In the days before cell phones and computers and laptops and all this brouhaha, which nobody would have ever been married longer than 6 months in the wrestling business if they'd had cell phones 30 years ago. You had to figure out a way to entertain yourself. We used to sit and watch Donnie Bass when he was 325 pounds. We were entertained by watching him put his boots on.
Are you kidding?
This is what it was down to.
Yeah.
You know, you played cards or you bullshitted and told stories or thought about what kind of promo you were going to do. And that's so you had to have some. Now they just sit there and talk to people in the ether
and
somewhere.
Mick Foley mentioned that had he had Twitter back then, he built up so much anger. That's like came out during his promos. If he had like Twitter back then, he'd just tweet online and get his frustration out, and he probably wouldn't have had that. He's being serious. He's like he probably wouldn't have had that.
That's a good
Yeah.
point. Okay,
right.
yeah.
I want to thank you guys for years of good entertainment. Sincerely.
Yeah.
For you, Jim, if you could just talk briefly about the Memphis experience and Lance Russell and how was them guys down there?
Oh well, it was great because
And
that's.
I came in late. If you've already talked about that, I'm sorry.
No, actually we didn't. We could have been here all day, but then my wife will probably be coming around the side of the door in about 5 minutes going. Yeah. Memphis was great because this is where I grew up, so I got to. It wasn't as intimidating to start in the business because I watched these guys on TV when I was a fan. Then as I got more involved, when I was a photographer, and this is another thing. I worked as a photographer and a ring announcer and helped at the merchandise table and et cetera, for 6 years and went to every town in this territory. Louisville every Tuesday, Evansville, Indiana every Wednesday, Memphis a lot of Mondays, even came to Nashville some on Saturday nights. I still never got in the locker room until my first day as a manager on television. Because you didn't have, nobody, police could not get in the locker rooms in those days. It was just not done. Because only people that were on the show got in the locker room. But I was able to get around the guys enough where I got to know them. I obviously studied the business and et cetera, So finally when I got my chance to do the first Memphis TV, I was scared shitless because I was going to be in front of 350,000 people because it was Memphis Television, the highest rated program in the country. But it was Lance doing the interview, leading me through it, and I've tried to burn the tape of the first week was only aired in Louisville, or in Memphis. It didn't air in Louisville or any of the other towns because they got running over time. It was supposed to, but they just cut it, and the Memphis show was 90 minutes, so they had extra time. And it stunk out loud. Boy, it stunk down the street. I was the shits. I was so bad. But we came back the next week, and we redid it. I said the same things, but I said them during commentary on a match instead of standing out there with poor Lance trying to draw this in. Because, once again, I had no script. Jerry Jarrett said, your mother's rich, she's going to buy contracts for guys, and you want to manage the heroes, not the bad guys like Jimmy Hart, because he's a distasteful person. Hey, go out there and do it. Okay. So anyway, I was more comfortable that the camera wasn't on me, and I was talking to Lance at the desk, and we managed to get that story out, and then I had a couple more weeks to get my shit back together before I had to be on camera again, and then it was easier after that. And that was the once I got at first when I was just supposed to be me, I didn't know who me was. But then after a few weeks when people had pissed me off, well, no, you know what I'm saying, the baby faces had done bad things. That's when I was able to be mad at somebody, and that's when I could actually do a promo, and that's when I figured out as long as I piss people off, I'll be great. And on that one, we shall both take a small bow.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.